this is Jurgen Rasmussen. Welcome to the Provocative Hypnosis blog. One key question to help a person who is stuck. Over the years, in seeing clients professionally, I have found a particular question to often be very useful in helping someone who is stuck. And that question is your experience mandatory? Is your experience mandatory? Meaning, given how a particular person in your life may behave, or given a particular context, or given a particular past historical fact, given X, Y, Z, is this particular response mandatory? Really getting someone to ask that question and to contemplate that question and to really inquire it can be extremely useful. You see, very often when people are severely stuck, or they're living a rough life, or they've been through something that's been extremely stressful to them, we can very often keep ourselves stuck by asking questions like, is my particular response here reasonable? Or is it justified? Or is it normal? Or could anyone really blame me for feeling this way? And the answer to all these questions may, depending upon how you view things, seem to be yes. Given my particular life history, how could I be expected to feel any different? Or given that I've experienced this particular thing, who could blame me for feeling this or for experiencing that, right? By asking the question, is my particular experience mandatory? Is a mandatory response given these circumstances? Is this particular response embedded in the circumstances per se? This question can very often open the door, get us off autopilot, and nudge our mind-body system to move in a slightly different direction. Now, when you ask this question, is my particular experience mandatory? You don't want to ask the question just as an intellectual exercise. You want to really sit down with it, really contemplate into it. An analogy I very often use is one of fishing. Like imagine that you're by the water, you're fishing, you're throwing your fishing rod and the bait out there, and you're doing it with this playful curiosity of, is there any fish out there, or what's going to bite, or what am I going to get? So you want to use this question in the same way when you throw it into your own consciousness, so to speak. It's just an invitation for your deeper intelligence to really contemplate, is this particular experience I'm having mandatory? Here's something really interesting. Even if your mind-body system throws out a habitual response of yes it is, or fuck you, I'm not going to change, or that's just the way it is, just asking the question in a sincere way gets your mind-body system to contemplate it. And just by beginning to contemplate it, the more your mind-body system begins to contemplate that question, the more it is seen that, wait a minute, this might be one particular song on the Spotify list, or this might be one particular item on the menu. It gets your brain to begin to orient in the direction of, hey, I've been doing this thing for a long time. might seem justified, might seem right, who could blame me, might seem natural. Most of the people in my life might agree I have every right to feel this way, but is it really mandatory? Just opens the door for your mind body system to begin to search for other ways of being, other ways of showing up. And there's something very, very powerful there. Something else you can do to kind of task yourself or to task a client is to put them in a context where they are guaranteed to have something of an experience, meaning their senses are being bombarded, So it could be something as simple as going to an amusement park and doing one of the more extreme rides. If you take someone else or yourself to an amusement park and you do or you do bungee jumping or whatever, and you do one of the more extreme rides, you're guaranteed that you're going to have some sort of sensory experience because your senses are being bombarded by stimuli. And it may seem that given the intensity of the sensory bombardment, so to speak, that whatever experience that you're having is kind of embedded in the context or mandatory. But if you can ask that, if you can do the ride once and then ask yourself, okay, is this experience mandatory? I did this just a couple of weeks ago. I did one of the more extreme attractions, and I had a particular experience. I was clenching up, and me and my friend were telling stories about how insane that particular experience was. And then the next time we did that particular attraction, I made a commitment to just fully surrender into the experience, to not clench up, to not even use my hands to hold, but to just completely release and to just float, to surrender and just to completely float with the experience and to not invest in any stories about how insane the experience was. This time, the experience was markedly different. Now, I've done a lot of meditation, so I can alter my experience pretty quickly by changing how I engage with something. But even for my friend who's not a meditator and who had a very strong response the first time, when he more released and floated with the experience, he also had a very different experience. Now you could also say that it's the second time, and that's also going to change the experience. But and this is something you do in meditation, right? You train yourself to, for example, feel the sensory experience with equanimity, with presence, with a lot of sensory clarity, without buying into all the storytelling that has a tendency to come along with the experience, to kind of make a distinction or separate the storytelling from the raw sensory experience. And the more you can do that, the more it is seen that, wait a minute, this is just experience. This is just a dance of fluctuating sensations, moving through me, so to speak. You could also do the same thing with an ice cold shower. If you go into if you do cold showers, if you go in there and you do what might be the hardest thing for a human being to do, to put it on ice cold, your body is going to likely cleanse up, and you're going to do all that stuff. But if you can do it once, and then the next time just play with the experience, is my particular experience here mandatory? Of course, you're going to have some experience in cold water. I mean, your senses are being bombarded, but is my experience mandatory? If you can relax into the sensations, if you can do nose breathing and breathe less and just surrender and completely go into the dance of fluctuating sensations that happen and not engage in the story, you can have a very different experience of that exact same context of cold showers. Very often, it can be useful to do a cold shower, or to do bungee jumping, or do an extreme sport, or do some of the attractions at an amusement park, because it's an intense sensory experience. And it's so easy, looks as if our experience is mandatory. But you can discover just by shifting your attention a little bit that both a different experience, but also different interpretations of experience, which will also then influence the experience, is available if you just nudge your mind-body system to look for it. And here comes that key question. Given X circumstance, is this particular response mandatory? So play with that. I found it to be extremely useful, both personally and with a lot of my clients. Again, if this information resonates, if you'd like to make some changes in your life, if you'd like to work with me, or you're curious about mentoring, you can find me at provocativhypnosis.com. If you have any comments or questions regarding this particular video, feel free to post them wherever you find this video. Until next time, enjoy.